of the government knowing the number of children. Let us be honest to ourselves, Mr. Speaker. The government knows the number of children in every school, because every classroom teacher must every single day, morning and afternoon, sign a class register confirming the number of children in that school. So it's not rocket science. Every principal knows the number of children. Mr. Speaker, the problem we face is when we are told that the children must have birth certificates to be put in the NEMI system. And Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, it is also the government that is in control of the delivery and the production of birth certificates. So parents are unable unless they go and queue for long hours to get birth certificates. So a lot of children don't have birth certificates and they end up not being able to be put in the system. But Mr. Speaker, even when you look at the amount of money that is given, you know, there was a time we were supporting education exams. Mr. Speaker, if you get to know the figure that is given for exams, if you get to know the amount of money that is given for sports, it is so little, Mr. Speaker, that it cannot be able to run the education system. So we need to look at how do we increase the capitation to make it enough for our children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Last on this, Melly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this petition. Mr. Speaker, I want to bring to the attention of the House that the funding gap that exists is a result of the decision of this House. That the 630 billion shillings, the primary school education is not, secondary school education is allocated around 60 billion. Of that, 22, and in that particular funding, it's supposed to have around 80-something billion shillings. So every year we have a funding gap of 22 billion. And I want to ask this House that in the next funding cycle, let us make sure that that amount of money is actually put in the budget. Two, Honorable Speaker, I also want to point out that in the various fundings that we have in this country, and I want to say the majority leader has just put it very clear. The other day we discussed with some experts that there is a lot of money outside there with the local banks, in the NGCDF, county governments, and other institutions amounting to over 30 billion shillings. If well streamed out, it can actually do a good job in terms of funding education. Two, we have this issue of a birth certificate. And I just want to address this more specifically to the Ministry of Interior. It has become a serious problem in schools to have a birth certificate. The Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Interior needs to work together so that we digitize and to get to know how many students, and every student needs to have a number so that we avoid fraud. And as Honorable KJ has just said, we really need to make sure that we have a very clear digital system in schools so that we can fund every child. We have a register in schools. So the petitions committee, and I think the education committee will have an input into this so that we solve this issue, and this one should not give parents and principals an excuse to raise fees. This is hard economic times, and actually we need to lessen the burden that we are giving to the parents of this country, that let the government pay, let the principals not raise fees at this particular time, Honorable Speaker. We need to streamline and make sure that the monies that we have reach schools on time. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, we